Old Man read a poem to a pair of alien midget wolves under full moon, but beginning, the settlement of Karsus, for clung to the crags of the dead moon like a barnacle on the ribs of a drowned whale. From a distance, it was just a scatter of glowing domes and antennae puncturing the thick haze of dust storms. Few ships stopped here anymore, and fewer people chose to stay. One of those who did was Elias Greer, an old man with a crooked back and a face carved with more creases than the dry gulches surrounding the outpost. His hair, once jet black, was white as lunar frost, and he walked with the aid of a cane fashioned from scrap ship plating. He had been a surveyor in his youth, back when Karsus, for promised riches, mineral veins, water pockets, and even whispers of alien ruins beneath the basalt plains. But greed drained the moon, leaving only rock and echoes behind. Elias stayed because he had nowhere else to go. He'd lost his family in the collapse of the Third Orbit War, and in his old age, silence suited him. He spent his evenings on a crumbling balcony outside his habdome, reading poetry to the dust storms and the stars. Some of it was his own, some of it ancient fragments saved from Earth's libraries. One night, under what the settlers mockingly called the full moon, a fractured satellite orbiting Karsus, for whose reflected glow tinted the entire sky a pale violet, Elias decided to read aloud a piece he had never before shared. It was a poem about longing, about searching for kinship in a universe that had grown cold. That night, he wasn't alone. As his voice cracked through the brittle lines of verse, he noticed two shadows slipping across the rocks below. They were no settlers. They were too low to the ground, too fluid in their movements. The old man leaned on his cane, squinting. They emerged into the violet light. Two wolves, yet not wolves. They stood barely to his knee, their limbs proportioned differently, their eyes too large for their heads, glowing faintly with bioluminescence. Their fur shimmered like polished silver, yet the sheen was mottled, patchy, as if still adapting to the harsh world around them. Alien midget wolves. They stopped below his balcony, ears twitching, eyes fixed on him. Elias's breath caught. He'd heard rumors from wandering prospectors about strange creatures haunting the basalt canyons, but no one had seen them this close to the settlement. Most dismissed them as tales spun to liven up miners' taverns. But here they were, two creatures, listening to an old man read poetry on the full moon. Instead of fleeing, Elias cleared his throat and continued reading. His voice was soft but steady, carrying words across the dust. And the wolves, if wolves they were, sat down side by side, tails curled around their paws, as though they understood. Middle. For weeks, the ritual repeated. Whenever the full moon rose, Elias found the pair waiting below his balcony. He would read to them poems of grief, of discovery, of Earth's forgotten rivers, of Martian deserts, of the first humans who dared the stars. He dug through his old files and data slates for every scrap of verse he could find. He began writing new poems to them, too, simple things about loneliness and companionship. He spoke of his wife, who had died on a shuttle over Titan. He spoke of his daughter, whose name he had not uttered in years, lost in the fires of the war. The alien wolves would sit silently, eyes reflecting violet moonlight, until the last word was spoken. Then, without sound, they would vanish back into the rocks. But Elias was no fool. He knew animals didn't behave this way, not on Earth, not anywhere else. These were not merely beasts. Something about the cadence of poetry seemed to hold them, as if language itself bridged a gap neither human nor alien had yet crossed. He began to wonder if they were the remnants of some intelligent species, mutated or reduced by Karsus 4's hostile environment. The thought gnawed at him, especially after he began to notice subtle changes. One night, when he paused to take a sip of water mid-poem, one of the wolves tilted its head and made a sound, not a growl, not a bark, but a low harmonic hum that resonated in Elias's bones, almost like a reply. Another evening, the smaller of the pair scratched symbols into the dust with its claw. Crude, jagged marks, but they resembled spirals, almost like the glyphs Elias had once seen in archive survey reports about the rumored alien ruins deep beneath the crust. Elias realized something chilling. The miners had stripped Karsus for its minerals, but perhaps they had unearthed something else, something living. The more time Elias spent with them, the more he grew convinced these were not mere animals but survivors of a forgotten civilization. Children, perhaps, refugees. And then came the night of the storm. The full moon was hidden behind swirling violet clouds, lightning dancing across the ridges. The settlement hunkered down, most colonists sheltering inside reinforced domes. Elias should have stayed inside too, but when he opened his door, the wolves were waiting, wet, trembling, their luminous eyes wide with something he had not seen before. Fear. He lowered himself beside them, ignoring the sting of the rain. "What's wrong, little ones?" They pressed close, shivering. In the distance, a rumble echoed, not thunder, but engines. Heavy atmospheric craft. Elias recognized the sound instantly. The colonial authority. They weren't here for the settlement. He knew their schedule. They were hunting. He remembered the rumors. Authority surveyors had been tracking signs of native anomalies on Karsus. Their policy was simple: eradicate. Anything not human was classified as a threat, too dangerous to coexist. The wolves weren't just the companions. They were in danger. Elias's heart, though brittle with age, clenched with purpose. He couldn't let the authority find them. Not after they had trusted him. That night, he made his decision. The flight beneath the full moon. Elias gathered what little he could: a pack of nutrient rations, a thermal blanket, an old revolver he hadn't fired in years, and his datapads of poetry. He opened the back of his dome and motioned to the wolves. "Come on, then. If they find you here, it'll be the end." The creatures followed without hesitation. They moved through the canyons, guided by instincts Elias could only hope to trust. The storm lashed at them, lightning clawing the sky, but the wolves seemed to know where they were going. For hours they trekked until the ground split into a yawning fissure. The wolves slipped inside, and Elias followed, grunting as his old bones protested. The fissure opened into caverns glowing faintly with crystalline veins. Strange glyphs marked the walls, ancient yet unmistakably deliberate. He realized with a shiver that he was standing inside the ruins once whispered about, the heart of an alien world long buried. The wolves padded ahead, tails swishing, leading him deeper until they reached a chamber where pillars curved into a dome. In the center lay a platform etched with spirals identical to those the smaller wolf had drawn in the dust. Elias understood. This was their home, their cradle. He lowered himself onto the platform, his breath ragged. "So that's why you came to me. You wanted me to know." The wolves circled him, humming softly. The sound echoed against the stone until the chamber itself seemed to vibrate with resonance. The pillars shimmered faintly, as though responding. Suddenly, Elias realized why they had listened to his poetry. It wasn't just the words. It was the rhythm, the cadence, the song of language itself. They were creatures of resonance, of harmony. They needed sound to awaken what had been lost. He placed a trembling hand on the platform and began to recite, not one of his old poems, but something new, raw, born of the moment, a plea for survival, a song of kinship across species. The chamber thrummed. The pillars flared with light, and the wolves howled, not like beasts, but like a chorus, weaving into his words until the cavern itself sang. For the first time in decades, Elias felt alive. But outside, engines roared closer. The authority had tracked them, ending. Floodlights cut through the fissure mouth as armored troopers descended with rifles raised. Their commander's amplified voice thundered. "By order of the colonial authority, step away from the anomalies." Elias rose slowly, cane in one hand, datapad in the other. The wolves stood at his side, fur bristling, glowing brighter now as the chamber pulsed with resonance. "They are not anomalies," Elias said, voice hoarse but firm. "They are survivors. They are people." The commander sneered. "Stand aside, old man." Elias knew what would follow. The authority never negotiated. His hand tightened on the datapad. He lifted it, not as a weapon, but as a torch of defiance. And then he began to read. His voice thundered through the cavern, amplified by the resonance of the chamber. The wolves howled with him, their harmonics merging with his words. The pillars blazed, light cascading through the ruins like a living thing. The soldiers staggered, clutching their helmets as the resonance pierced their comms, disrupting their systems. One by one, their floodlights flickered out. The commander shouted orders, but his voice was drowned beneath the symphony. The chamber awoke. The spirals lit up across the floor, forming patterns of stars Elias did not recognize. A low rumble shook the ground, and in the center of the platform, a column of light erupted, spiraling upward into the storm above. Elias knew what it was. A beacon. A call. The wolves pressed close to him, their eyes shimmering with gratitude. He looked down at them, tears streaking his weathered face. "Go on, little ones. Find your kin." The column widened, enveloping the wolves. Their forms stretched, shimmered, as though their true selves had been hidden all along. No longer small, fragile creatures. They expanded into towering silhouettes of light, elegant and terrible, their voices now a choir echoing across the moon. They howled one final note, a farewell, and vanished into the light. The column collapsed. Silence returned. The soldiers, dazed and broken, scrambled from the fissure. Only Elias remained, kneeling on the platform, exhausted. His cane lay beside him, forgotten. Above, the full moon broke through the clouds, painting the cavern in violet glow. Elias smiled faintly, whispering the last line of the poem he had begun. An old man's words carried on the wind, and found a home in hearts not human. And then, with peace in his chest, Elias closed his eyes.